It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor?
Lucas?
Yes, Will.
So glad you could join me today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
We're gonna have a good time today. It's really nice to have you.
Oh, it's lovely to be. Will, we're not in the same physical space, but I consider us ideologically close. We're sort of neighbors of the mind.
And isn't it indeed a beautiful day in our neighborhood?
Oh, big time. Big time. It's actually quite. If we're talking about literal, it's actually quite good, nice out today. It's nice.
No. It actually looks really nice outside. but it is a metaphorical. It's a beautiful day in our metaphorical neighborhood because my goodness, it feels like a long time since we've been able to say this is For the Kids, a PBS Kids podcast, and this is one of what promises to be one of our bigger episodes to date. But my name is Will Young, and my friend there is Lucas Mancini.
That's right. Here I am, along with Will. We're going to take a deep dive this week.
You said it, because this week, now Lucas, this was your choice, wasn't it?
That's right. I wanted to keep with the diving metaphor. I pushed you off into the deep end because you're the one that ends up doing the research. But at a loss last week, I was like, let's do Mr. Rogers. Let's rip off the Band-Aid fast.
Indeed, we're talking about one of the signature, I'd think, signature PBS Kids shows, PBS shows in general, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And let me tell you, that involves quite a bit of research this time around, as I'm happy to do it for these television shows. But the funny thing is that I kind of, was trying to figure out how to tackle this, because to be honest, the amount of information available on Mr. Rogers, the man in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the show, is quite plentiful. So I was like, do we really need like a podcast of two Canadian dudes like giving you the skinny, like the full story on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
It's not like that. There's a movie starring Tom Hanks and an award-winning documentary,
a tear-jerking documentary. My God,
I'm sure countless books.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to run in and this is going to be, if you're writing a university paper right now, you're looking for research, this is going to be the number one cited source, I think, is this paywall podcast.
But I mean, we are going to talk about a little bit about the man and the show, but I do want to recommend everybody check out Won't You Be My Neighbor. Now, I would struggle to say that it's also exhaustive, but I mean, it is like 90 minutes long, which this podcast won't be, and it's a really tremendous documentary. I haven't seen the dramatic film. The Tom Hanks film.
I actually haven't seen either, Will, so I'm ready to learn right now. I'm ready to do some learning.
Okay. Well, I'd like to learn something about you, Lucas. What was your relationship as what I will guess is as a young child with Mr. Rogers and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
So it's funny, Mr. Rogers, I definitely remember my parents talking about Mr. Rogers a lot. And I remember whenever Mr. Rogers was on, this was something that they would always comment about really enjoying when they were little kids. But my relationship to Mr. Rogers was similar to kind of when we were talking about in the Barney episode and in the Teletubbies episode, was basically kind of as a punchline in the early 2000s. I often think to the end of the Ultimate Showdown, and how if you don't remember the pun here, but the ultimate kind of victor in the Ultimate Showdown was indeed Mr. Rogers in a bloodstained sweater. And so those were the kind of the things I remember, like being like 12 and seeing that, and never really having watched Mr. Rogers as a kid. But I do remember sort of whenever Mr. Rogers was on TV, my parents were always like very like gleeful. They were like remembering, the King and all those characters, and they were really into it. Though I will say that him as a person. And I remember kind of taking a little bit of a peek at this when that documentary was coming out and everybody was fawning over it. Even as a kid and then later on as an adult, you can't help but be endeared to him. There's some sort of like magical glow about Mr. Rogers that comes through the screen. So even when you're a little kid, and that show's quite old for my early 90s or late 90s brain, it came off as a little bit, slow. Even then, I remember thinking to myself, this is a little slow, this is a little bit boring, but this guy's all right. I'm a fan of this guy. So I think that continued to this day.
Well, I think that you and I are still within the appropriate age range that there's something that touches I kind of wrote a note here about something else, but unlocks a door in our memory. And kind of, I think it's just the gentle, sweet tones that we maybe heard at a very formative age of Fred Rogers. I think me, like millions of children from the last, 30 to 50 years, I'd say, grew up watching this at least regularly. And also a show very similar like it for us Canadians, which I'll get into in a little bit. So it's hard, but it is hard to say how much of my childhood was formed by it, because I would have been watching it as a very, very young child. But I still do have kind of an innate nostalgia for it. So I think what's important to talk about first is, because this show is, and we'll see how Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is 100% Fred Rogers. And Fred Rogers, unfortunately, has since passed away. We're getting up to what will be his 100th birthday. He was born in 1928 in Pennsylvania. I found it interesting when I was looking through some of his biographical stuff. He was described as a very lonely child who was bullied at a young age. And unfortunately, a lot of our best kind of entertainers and even thinkers and doers kind of end up with that. Kind of go through that at one point in their lives. He became an ordained minister at the age 35. He was kind of an academic, and then that kind of ended up being where he seeded into. What he wanted to do was to minister to people through the television. He even has a quote here: "I went into television because I hated it so." And that has to do with the fact that the violence on television was his big concern, and especially with how many kids were being exposed to it. So, I mean, how often when we were kids did you hear about people decrying the violence on TV and all this kind of stuff? So this is very much in that kind of wheelhouse.
It's very similar to the reasons we got into podcasting, Will, because we were decrying all the Halifax podcasts about beer and, for lack of a better term, lovemaking. We wanted to do something a little bit different. Children's TV, basically. So there's a lot of ourselves in Mr. Rogers.
I gotta save that. I have to save that for like next time I'm like interviewed by somebody who's like, "Why'd you get started in podcasting?" Like, "'Cause I hate it so." Fred Rogers he started working in public television. He developed his puppets on a show in the 50s or 60s, I believe. It was called Children's Corner, which actually won an award or two because of the work that he did on it. Now, Lucas, check this out. I was completely unaware of this. They may cover this in the documentary, and I might have forgotten. But in 1963, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, contacted him to develop his own show called Mr. Rogers.
Whoa! See, I had no idea about this either. And I was going to ask Will, because I was thinking about when I did see this show, I feel like it actually wasn't on PBS when I was watching PBS in the late 90s. And I was going to ask you if Mr. Rogers was, if this is like kind of a me misremembering, like a Berenstain kind of situation, and I'm just thinking of Mr. Dressup, or did Mr. Rogers re-air in syndication on CBC?
Well, check this out. So, I was very pleased that this show called Mr. Rogers, and it's spelled like Misterogers. So like one word, Mr. Rogers.
Oh, Mr. Rogers. It's like a rap name.
A little bit, yeah. So it was his very first on-screen role with him as the host. So he only stayed at CBC for a few years, but while he was there, he worked with a man named Ernie Coombs, a.k.a. Mr. Dress-Up.
Whoa, okay, interesting. The Mr. Rogers cinematic universe.
So yeah, that's where I don't think it's where Ernie Coombs got his start, but it was one of his most notable. And for those of our non-Canadian Patreon listeners, Mr. Dress-Up was essentially a Mr. Rogers type figure for Canadian kids. I think, he worked a lot with puppets, he worked a lot with props, and it was the same style of show, although he was a much different presenter. I think he was a bit more energetic. I remember I think that was maybe the first live show I ever saw was a live show of Mr. Dress-Up.
No, yeah,
at like the Rebecca Cohen Theater in Halifax.
My dad was a big Mr. Dress-Up guy.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, big fan.
And he's held in very high regard, Mr. Dress-Up. Also, a lot of the designers who were working at CBC in the 1960s created a lot of the props that Mr. Rogers would go on to use in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So he only stayed with the CBC for a couple of years. He started working on the show that we're talking about today in 1968. And of course, went for a very, very long time. We'll get into the specifics in just a little bit. So from 1968 for at least 3 full decades, Mr. Rogers working on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He also continued working as a performer and as a producer, so I didn't know about this either. He created more television content aimed at adults. There's like a period in the 1970s where he kind of stopped working on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and created other shows that were kind of in similar tone but aimed at adults. There were shows called Old Friends, New Friends, and a show he did later called Fred Rogers' Heroes that were kind of more adult based, so like interviews with people and talking about their way of life.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, we often think of him as like the kids show was his thing, but he was a real entertainer. He was an actor. He appeared as a guest star in a lot of shows. Of course, we're familiar with Arthur, but he was on, Sesame Street. He was in an episode of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? He was in an episode of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman in the 1990s. So he was a real kind of entertainer. And he was one of the most sought-after commencement speakers and a very popular interview subject. I think as we'll talk about with the TV show itself, he's very good at off the cuff. He must have been a great guy to speak to.
Yeah, no, that's I think one of the things that's almost immediately apparent is that his kind of greatest strength is his kind of delivery and his speaking voice. He's one of those people that when he's speaking, it comes off as casual, it comes off as non-scripted, but at no point is he pausing to say or anything like that.
It's very measured, and I think that was what a lot of people latched onto. Like when it was at its height of popularity, of course, it was lampooned by comedians and television shows and all that kind of stuff. And that's what the first thing you could do is his
cartoons,
very particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very particular way of speech, or like a couple of Family Guy gags back in the day. And Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was not everything he did, but I'd say it was his most lasting legacy. So just a bit more here about Fred Rogers the man. He retired in 2001 from kind of doing general entertainment. That was when the last episodes of the show aired. He was diagnosed with stomach cancer a year after that, and he died in February 2003 at the age of 74. He had a public memorial in May 2003. It was attended by over 2,700 people and had guests like Yo-Yo Ma and author of Arthur, Mark Brown, who was a friend and colleague of his.
Oh, the connections, it's all connected, Will.
It really is, and it was wild to be reading up on Fred Rogers and see a quote from Mark Brown. I'm just wow, Arthur really is. It's a deep vein within my life sometimes. He also had, as you can imagine, countless awards and honors. A couple of my favorites were that he got a Google Doodle in 2018 on the homepage of Google.
Back when it meant something.
He has honorary degrees from over 43 institutions. He's got art pieces, he's got statues, and he was once named a celebrity captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
That's amazing.
I would have loved to go to that game where they hang Mr. Rogers' jersey. So yeah, it's really a tremendous life. And I think what is harder for us to speak to is him as a person, which I would again recommend that you check out. Would You Be My Neighbor or Won't You Be My Neighbor, the documentary where the people who worked with him and knew him best can kind of talk about, like, I think the idea is that he was a gentle man, but he was also a perfectionist, and he expected a lot out of himself. So I would encourage you to do that. And let's talk about now the television show itself, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So this isn't entirely his creation. It debuted in 1968. That's when the first episode aired. It ran all the way until 2000, which I kind of mentioned earlier. It ran on and off. He took a sabbatical in the 1970s to focus on the adult programs that we mentioned there. So the last episode of it aired in 2001. All in all, it was 33 years on the air with 912 episodes.
It's almost as many as One Piece.
Yeah, it is kind of, maybe in its own way, the American One Piece, or perhaps the American Doctor Who, in terms of just sheer length of episodes, and maybe even quality as well. It is the third longest running PBS show. It still airs on some PBS affiliates today, and it's readily available online as well. Not just, I mean, you and I watched Google searched an episode, but if you go on to the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood website, they upload they upload different episodes every month, so you can watch new ones. Or newer, or different ones. The show is entirely Fred Rogers' creation. So he produced it with the Pittsburgh public broadcaster, WQED. He wrote and he edited the episodes. He wrote over 200 songs all throughout the show, including the main theme song. He created the characters. He played the puppets, as we saw in the episode. He was heavily involved in production. This was his baby. It's crazy to think about how much of the production was dependent on him being as creative and what's the word I'm looking for? Ambitious as he was. You might also know about a spin-off show. Did you know this took me a couple years to figure out, because A, I didn't know it existed, and B, I didn't make the connection until somebody told me. So are you aware of the animated spin-off Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood?
Oh my god, wait a minute. Which I believe is actually animated in Halifax.
You know what? I bet it is. I wouldn't be surprised.
Let me just look that up real quick. But I think
totally.
I believe that is a local production. Again, the it's all connected. Will the Mr. Rogers? It seems to be kind of at the center of the Elwood City Limits universe.
Exactly. Daniel Striped Tiger is the star of the animated spin-off Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which began airing in 2012, and it is a spin-off from the character from Mr. Rogers. And I believe they even have cameos from Mr. McFeely and other puppets that were characters in Mr. Rogers.
I can't find it here, but I do think I know people who have worked on Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which now it's all making sense that it's a Mr. Rogers spin-off, but that never occurred to me either.
So I wanted, Lucas, how does it make you feel to know that this was, because obviously Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood had a whole crew and everything, but it made me look at the show a lot differently to know that so much of its creation and its continuation over the time that it was on air was due to the fact, due to the efforts of Fred Rogers. Does that, how does that strike you?
Well, it's interesting. He's definitely a true auteur. This is kind of a funny example, but it's almost it's like when you watch, it's like when you're playing a Hideo Kojima video game. He makes sure to remind you that it's a Hideo Kojima video game. And Mr. Rogers does it in a lot more subtle way, unlike Hideo Kojima, who just puts his name on the screen a million times. I feel like it's actually not that big of a surprise to me, because it's really apparent kind of through recognizing his voice in the kind of imagination land sequences, and you can kind of just see, if you know anything about Mr. Rogers, his hand in kind of every aspect in the production. So it doesn't really come as a surprise to me, but doesn't make it any less impressive.
The other thing that I wanted to talk about beyond the show, this is kind of the last little thing here, is the aim of it. So the idea behind the show was to focus on a child's emotional and social development, because Rogers himself studied early childhood development, and he worked throughout the show with Margaret McFarland, who is a child psychologist. And that was the idea, behind what they were doing is that they wanted to, rather than say something like Sesame Street that teaches you very like fundamental concrete stuff like ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, spelling and that kind of stuff. This was all about learning how to navigate your feelings and learning how to kind of exist around people, so to speak. And I think that becomes apparent when you see just how Mr. Rogers communicates throughout the episode. And it's kind of something, it's a nuance to the show that I think is very important to consider, because it wasn't just another Sesame Street. It wasn't just like, there was a real specific mission behind the show. And I would like to think that in some way it did work. But I think we can maybe decide for ourselves. So as we do with these kind of older shows, I tried to do something that conceivably could have been viewed by both of us. This was probably, you would have just been, so actually you might have just been brand new when this came out. Lucas, the episode we're talking about, What Do You Do with the Mad That You Feel, is from season 26 of Mr. Rogers. It's episode 4, October 1995.
October 1995. So I would have been born in February. So I would have been March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. I would have been 9 months old.
Right. So not necessarily taking in what was on the TV, but you never know. It could have been on in the background.
Subconsciously, yes.
Well, while you were Goo Goo Gaga, and then most likely it would have been making some kind of impact on me necessarily. I would have been just newly 5 years old at the time. So of course, a typical episode of Mr. Rogers starts out with that, with kind of like that model little town. Mm-hmm. I always loved that. It always kind of sucked me in right from the beginning. I don't know why. I think it reminded me of like Thomas the Tank Engine. There's like a type of unreality to it that I was like, ooh, I like the way this looks.
Well, and it's a train going through the town, right? And it's like you feel like you're in an Animal Crossing game or something. The way that like every Animal Crossing game starts the same way. You're either on a bus or a train to this new place, and you kind of feel the same way. You're like, oh, I'm going through Mr. Rogers' neighborhood to my destination.
I also feel like I should point out, I said the title of the episode is called What Do You Do with the Mad That You Feel? And I feel like somebody, one of our patrons, will say something if I don't mention the fact that this is that particular song. It's not in this episode, unfortunately. I imagine it was probably within this week of programming, but that is one of the things that Fred Rogers talks about when he was petitioning to, this is a big part of like the documentary, when he talks to that representative from New York about getting more money for public television, like that classic.
Right,
like
I watched just seeing that on the Wikipedia article. Yeah,
I was watching it while I was doing research, and of course, like I cry every time by the end. And it's just it's spine tingling, and it again goes to his kind of strength as a public persona and as a speaker. So as with every episode, I mean, there is a pretty definite formula to a lot of Mr. Rogers, but it was interesting to see it with adult eyes here. So with the start of every episode, Mr. Rogers has a routine. So he comes in the door, and you would have seen this kind of parodied in the Arthur episode. He comes in the door, he's singing, "It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood," and all that kind of stuff. He hangs up the jacket that he's wearing, he puts on a sweater, he takes off his shoes, and he ties up his sneakers while he's singing the song.
And can I just say, at this point, I didn't write a lot of notes for this episode. I never really do for the kids. But after the first note is, of course, the theme song slaps, which is basically you could copy-paste that into almost every single show we've done on For the Kids thus far. But this one especially so.
We haven't hit a truly bad one yet.
And then the next note is Mr. Rogers is dripping. Okay, so let me talk about this. This is like normcore adjacent. You know, Will, everybody's over cottagecore now. I don't know if you heard. Cottagecore.
Oh, really?
Cottagecore was for the summer. Okay, it's all about dark academia now. Okay, cottagecore is over. Everybody's talking about dark academia, and let me tell you something. Mr. Rogers kind of got the dark academia look going. We got the classic. Okay. Vintage trainers. He's strapping on the vintage trainers, so we're kind of casualizing this kind of dressy look. Okay, we got the zip up sweater, and of course Oxford shirt with the tie pinned down. Got the wide tie going. It's a solid look, Will. We got the pleated slacks. Oh my God, he's serving looks.
And he has the confidence to pull it off. A lot of people can't do that, but even right down to the catching the shoe when he's doing the song.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that TikTok where people flick the shoe up in the air and then they catch it on their foot and they're wearing another outfit. Get out my way! Yeah, it's like I wouldn't give to see Mr. Rogers do that.
Why hasn't anybody done that yet? That is a free idea just waiting to happen. That's brilliant. Well, brilliant. So of course he has a very, hi neighbor, glad we're together again, which is, kind of hits you in the right place. So this particular one, he's talking about how he has this box with him when he comes in, and it's a box with a doll of Mr. McFeely, who is one of the recurring characters on the show. Did you know who he meant by Mr. McFeely initially?
No, I'm not super familiar with, I'm even less familiar with the kind of extended Mr. Rogers universe. I really only knew kind of Mr. Rogers himself and I think the King, but I inferred pretty quickly who Mr. McFeely was. I was like, oh, here comes the mailman.
He's the speedy delivery man. He's a recurring character who's played by David Newell, who did public relations for Fred Rogers Productions, which was the studio that eventually came out of this. He's still alive, Mr. McFeely. He's in his 80s, and it seems like even after the show was over, a lot of what he did was kind of going around and spreading the good word of Mr. Rogers. There's even a documentary about David Newell, the guy who played Mr. McFeely, so I think I'd actually like to check that out. And so one of the things we're talking about is Mr. Rogers says, there's a lot of great things that people can do with their hands without hurting others. And we get this little montage of mostly children kind of playing, like using their hands. So playing with puppets, washing a car, making cookies and stuff like that. So that seems to be very in keeping with the type of content that Fred Rogers wanted to create. He wanted to make content for kids that encourage them to be active without promoting like violence or anger. This was where it hit me. I guess I never realized or remembered the improvisational tone of the show.
Yeah, that was something that I never realized either, is because, like we were talking about earlier, he's got such a kind of not slow manner of speaking, but deliberate manner of speaking. And usually that leads itself to someone reading a script. It's usually these fast talkers that are doing all this improvisation. So I was surprised to realize that it comes off very casual and very earnest.
There's a confidence to it. It's the fact that he knows how to hold your attention, and he knows that he doesn't have to be loud or super fast or even like witty to do so. And I mean, we talked a lot about his cadence, but he's also like, he knows where he's going to, he knows how to bring you there, and he knows that he's going to keep your attention that way. So I think that that's a really he's a really sublime performer that way. That kind of confidence a lot of performers can't say that they have in whatever medium you want to talk about. He reads a book of illustrations about a big part of the show, which is the land of make-believe. So I don't know about you, but when he went over some of the names in the book, I wrote here, it unlocked a door in my memory. So when he got to talking about characters like Henrietta Pussycat, Daniel Striped Tiger, King Friday, Trolley, I was like, oh, I remember these people.
And so again, I think this might be an age difference thing, but usually for me, I was like, oh yeah, I remember King Friday, I remember Daniel Striped Tiger, but it's usually in the context of like parodies of Mr. Rogers. Like I remember King Friday showing up in like a robot chicken sketch.
It was almost like the earliest memory I have of remembering things about a television show, of like, oh, those are my favorite characters. In fact, I can tell you definitively, my favorite character on the show is Trolley.
Oh, wow.
Because I loved trains as a kid, and then whenever Trolley comes around, it means that we're going to the land of make-believe, which was always my favorite part of the show because it was puppets, and I also really liked hand puppets as a kid. I loved puppet shows.
Which is interesting now because I feel like I'd probably be the same way. You know, we've talked about this often about how we always kind of didn't like the children's shows that were live action as kids because we wanted the more fantastical animated stuff. But it's funny going back and watching this show as an adult with my adult eyes. Hindsight's 2020. I kind of, and this is again due to the man himself, prefer the Mr. Rogers sections to the Land of Make-Believe sections, just because I think I'm so enraptured with his delivery and sort of the way he addresses the camera that those moments do a lot more for me than going back into the Land of Make-Believe. Not to disparage the Land of Make-Believe by any means, but that was just something with my adult perspective I noticed.
Yes, he has a magnetic quality to him, so it's almost like Poochie of just like when Mr. Rogers on screen, we're asking where's Mr. Rogers. But I love how Trolley's on a track behind him, and then it goes into the tunnel, and then on the other side of the tunnel is Make Believe. And a couple of times, Mr. Rogers is very clear to be like, what happens in Make Believe is not real, like, so don't worry about it, kind of thing. Which you kind of have to say sometimes for really little kids. And this is what tripped me out, I think, the most. So Mr. Rogers is like, if you remember what happened last time in Make Believe, Lady Elaine used her boomerang, toomerang, sumerang, and I was like, wait, hold on a second. There's continuity in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
Yeah, this was a wild reveal for me as well. I did not know that kept waiting for kind of the conclusion of what was the Imagination Land episode, the kind of storyline this week, and it never comes.
Yeah.
Like, we have to tune into the next episode.
It seems that when I was looking through the episode guide, there are episodes with kind of the same or similar title. So I'm guessing that there was probably like a concurrent storyline over, Monday to Friday's television show. So then that would kind of keep kids tuning in and wondering what the next part of the story is.
It was on every day?
I want to say that it was.
That makes sense.
I mean, so... But I was just like, what? I thought I could just drop in at any episode and we'd be fine. But it seems like we're in like part 3 of 5 here.
No, yeah, it's like The Wire. We drop in and it's first of all, they're talking about a literal, what is it, is it Westwood they're talking about? I was like, this is literally like a Sorkin show or something. The kind of political kind of Machiavellian kind of backroom conversations going on with the imagination world.
Right, because I think the idea is that Lady Elaine, who is one of the puppets, used her boomerang, toomerang, sumerang, and that made a lot of the other people in the Land of Make-Believe very afraid that she would do something to them because she was upset with, I think it was King Friday or something. Like, again, we're kind of coming in halfway through the story, so I kind of didn't catch absolutely everything. She
turned someone's building upside down, so I'm to believe that boomerang, toomerang, sumerang is some sort of WMD. And I'm not surprised that the government wants to kind of keep Lady Elaine in check. She threatens to turn the assistant mayor into a doll.
That's right. So we have two human characters in this part because of course Mr. Rogers is doing most of the puppetry here. So that's who they interact with. There's neighbor Chuck and Mayor Maggie, who they have real world counterparts as well, where it's like he's neighbor Chuck in the real world and he's like Chuck, the assistant to the mayor in Make Believe. So they're the ones who talk with the puppets and kind of keep the story going. And yes, it's Lady Elaine threatens to turn him into a doll, and that's what kind of everyone is afraid of, that she'll use her boomerang to make this kind of magic. And it's I believe also the person playing Mayor Maggie also played Anna Platypus.
Oh.
That's my guess, at least, because it's a voice where it's a little girl's voice, but it's not done with Mr. Rogers pitching up his voice. It sounds like an actual woman. So I'm guessing that was probably Maggie. It might not be. It could be somebody completely different. Speaking of, I definitely don't remember who Anna Platypus is. So that was, or Lady Elaine for that matter. So that was kind of out of my
See,
head.
I kind of remembered Lady Elaine.
Now, speaking of Fitzlucas, how about Chuck's enormous cell phone?
Oh my goodness. This is drip. If you see someone bust this out on the street, you'd be like, whoa, what a throwback. This is cool. People are buying like VHS players and stuff now, Will. This giant cell phone, the less your cell phone could do, the more of a flex it is these days. If you're rocking like a Nokia, if you got a T-Mobile Sidekick, that's how you know someone's really cool, okay? So if I saw, first of all, Chuck's, again, he too has the dark academia look going on with the giant beige pants. He's got the whole beige fit, beige head to toe, like Kanye. And then he's busting out this giant cocaine 90s cell phone like he's Gordon Gekko. This is great stuff.
It's got like an antenna on it.
Yeah,
it looks like a toy.
He looks like Paulie Dangerously from ECW.
Yeah, he does bust that out. He's trying to play peacemaker here with Lady Elaine and kind of make through the situation. But you're right, we don't get resolution on this. We have to wait for the next episode. He also goes by to Daniel Striped Tiger and to another character I didn't remember, Grand-Père Tiger, which is Mr. Rogers getting to take a French accent for a walk.
Grand-Père Tiger was, I know we don't do throwaway character of the week on this show, but Grand-Père Tiger was a surprise highlight of this episode for me. I was a fan of him and his beret.
And I mean, it's a pretty broad French accent, but I will say he knows a little bit of like French words. I mean, so it wasn't.
He was working in Canada,
unknown.
right? So.
Yeah, that's probably very, very true. So yeah, that was kind of the Land of Make Believe segment, which was nice to go back to, and it's kind of, I think it's a nice way to kind of mix up, because I feel like, as you talked about, the Mr. Rogers segments of him just by himself are a bit more compelling to us as adults, knowing his full impact. As a kid, it's nice to kind of get into the puppet show aspect of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we also get another Mr. Rogers staple where he feeds the fish, which is another story that I think is passed a lot along social media, which is that whenever he feeds the fish, he says it out loud, because there was a visually impaired child who asked him if the fish were okay one time.
Mr. Rogers, this is the one thing you can draw a comparison between Mr. Rogers and, was it Weebay from The Wire who had fish? Who had fish in The Wire?
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember the character's name.
I believe it was Weebay.
Okay. So yeah, he feeds the fish, and then we get a couple of like little songs here. And when I say little, I mean they're like 30 seconds long. But this again brought attention back to me about the fact that Mr. Rogers like made these songs, but so it's like 2 30-second songs for this one episode. But then multiply that by 912.
Yeah, it's a lot of songs.
So he must have had to write down every single idea he ever had and make it into something resembling a fully formed song. Even for 30-second length, that's pretty big. So he has a song about how our bodies are constantly growing, and then Mr. McFeely comes in to get the doll of himself back, and he has a song about speedy delivery. So not much to them, but still, that's more songs than I've written, and it must be really challenging, especially when you're probably on the production schedule that the show was.
Well, and the other thing that I really noticed about this show, that this was something that I'd completely forgotten, or something that kind of pop culture hadn't filled in the blanks with me, that you kind of have to watch an episode of Mr. Rogers to truly appreciate, is that the running piano soundtrack throughout the show is a super intrinsic part of why it works. And one of the reasons that I really enjoyed it as an adult, it's kind of a very unique soundtrack, because there's not a lot of other instrumentation, right? It's just this piano going throughout the whole episode. It reminded me almost of, this is kind of a weird comparison, what are those Philip Glass movies called? Those ones where it's just like footage of New York? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
I don't think I do.
Koyaanisqatsi or something? They're like art films.
Koyaanisqatsi.
Exactly. And so we just have this kind of piano by itself tends to either be haunting or have a certain kind of aesthetic to it, but this kind of piano now for me is very inseparable from Mr. Rogers. It gives the show kind of a sound unto itself to kind of match the aesthetic and kind of the slow vibe that the show has unto itself. It also has this kind of, if you close your eyes and listen to Mr. Rogers, it sounds wholly unique as well. And I attribute that to this kind of running piano soundtrack that goes throughout the show. Another thing is that when someone goes into song, it's actually a really smooth transition because the piano is going the whole time. And so when Mr. Rogers starts singing along to the piano, it matches up. Another thing that's curious is that he's probably singing on set, right? So it's not added in post. So the piano's going behind him and he's singing the song actually on set and they're capturing it. It's not overdubbed, which is also impressive. You know, in movies, they only do that. When they do that, it's a huge deal. Like I remember reading about Les Mis before that Les Mis movie came out. And everybody was like, they're actually singing the songs.
It's very sprightly and very jazzy. I actually forgot to mention that during that earlier in the episode when they were kind of talking about doing things with your hands, that it was just, footage of kids doing stuff over this jazzy little piece, and it actually calmed me down quite a bit. I had a very busy morning when I was watching this, and then it really helped to kind of soothe me. I was like, it's really pleasant to listen to, and like you said, it complements everything that happens on screen, all of the actions. So, and even into this next part where Mr. Rogers uses picture, which is a portrait of kind of, I think it's like a boat or something, but then it acts as sort of a television into a video piece. And he uses it to show a video of how facial tissue is made at Wisconsin Tissue, a factory. So all throughout, you see the entire process, which is actually really interesting.
Oh, yeah,
and
no.
The entire...
This type of content, Will, is evergreen, okay?
Yeah,
From this...
yeah.
to how it's made, to now, if I took a section of this and put it on TikTok and did hashtag weirdly satisfying under it, it would still get play. This stuff works across generations. Everybody loves this. Boomers, millennials, Gen Xers, we all love seeing stuff get made.
Absolutely. And the music that goes along with it is kind of mimicking the actions of what we're seeing. And it's a really nice backing track. So I'm glad you said that. Yeah, so like earlier in the episode, Mr. McFeely delivered a package of facial tissues to Mr. Rogers, which in my head I was like, man, in Yakuza you just get that stuff for free. They just hand it out like water. So we learn how facial tissue is made, which is, again, really interesting. Might have changed by now with changing factory standards, but still. And
one more thing about the facial tissue thing. I'm trying to find the timestamp. Yeah. There's a guy who works at this factory who... Oh, here we go. This at 24:14. This
yes,
dude's just...
I know who you're talking about.
Just is dressed exactly like me.
He's got the... I was trying to figure out what his T-shirt said. I think it was like a football team or something.
Warriors. It's drip. I'm not gonna lie. Like, yeah, the T-shirt tucked in, the type of jeans he's wearing, also the mustache. This dude just like he's got my look, and I love it.
As casual as you please. And at the end there, Mr. Rogers takes one of the facial tissues and he's like, here's a couple things you can do with them. You can blow your nose, you can wipe your eyes, you can even like put it in your pocket. He accessorizes his red sweater by using a tissue as a white pocket square.
Yeah, very punk, very like crust punk of Mr. Rogers. It's like how they use like safety pins and stuff.
Right.
Kind of making a statement piece about consumerism by using a tissue as a pocket square. I love it.
It's that you can certainly use it to get started on a little bit of fashion, and the white with the red works. So this gets to the end of the episode, and Mr. Rogers has a song at the end of every episode. It's not as well known as, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, but it was very nice to listen to, and I must admit I got a little teary because it starts off with like because the idea behind the show is it's inviting children in, and that's been something that he himself has talked about, is that he wanted to make children feel welcome and like their presence is wanted, and that they themselves, Mr. Rogers likes them as they are, and he liked you and me as we were. And there's a great line in this final thing. He says, it's such a good feeling to know you're alive, and sometimes that's all you need to hear. And I really appreciate it. There's such an unfiltered and unironic optimism to watching this that was really infectious and was like a balm.
Affirmating,
almost.
I would say.
Yes, I would agree to that too. So we usually end talking about these shows on this podcast by asking, like, does it hold up, or like, was it any good? I feel like that's a little bit redundant when we're talking about a show that is still this highly regarded, even more so now that the viewing audience is, into our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. So I think what I would like to know is, do you feel that you could put Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood on TV for young kids today?
Ooh, okay.
Do you feel like it hangs with TV, like with kids, young kids today?
So I'll kind of answer your question in two ways. I'll kind of answer your question in how you asked it now, and I'll also answer in terms of like, did I like the show? First off,
yeah,
in
I'd
terms
like to know
of
that too. I'd like to know that
could
too.
we put it on TV today? I'm not sure. I think the existence of Daniel Tiger kind of disproves that fact, and that Daniel Tiger's trying to do the same thing as Mr. Rogers, but kind of update it to today's standards of it's animated, so it's a little bit more palatable to kids' short attention spans. I haven't seen much Daniel Tiger, but I assumed it's probably just a tad quicker paced. But compared to like something like Gumball, I don't know why I always bring up Gumball in these conversations about kids' TV. I think that's because it's probably the newest kids' TV show I've watched, like that or like Teen Titans Go. But Gumball moves at like a frenetic TikTok style pace, right? And so that's like pure Adderall, whereas Mr. Rogers is basically in slow motion to something like that. So I can't really say. I think that there's a timeless quality to Mr. Rogers, and that kind of brings me to my next point, which is like, did I enjoy it? And it's funny, I've been recently I've been stealing my friend's Criterion Collection subscription, so I've been watching like all these really old movies. Like I watched
Yes, you have. I've noticed.
I watched Persona for the first time a couple nights ago. And when you watch a movie like that, you kind of know what you're getting into, and you can kind of appreciate it for what it is. And the fact that it is so slow, or so differently paced than what you're used to with kind of modern stuff, is actually kind of what makes it special, right? It's such a breath of fresh air because you're used to everything being one way, and this is so old and so kind of differently paced that it feels so different and kind of new, and I think Mr. Rogers has the similar vibe to me of what I watched like an old Ford film from like the 50s or early 60s. It's kind of the children's TV version of that, where I actually was really entertained this week watching Mr. Rogers, even more so than when we've watched shows like Sagwa or what have you, or definitely more than like Wishbone, because it's kind of got this completely different this vibe that it's so novel to me that I really kind of enjoyed watching it as this kind of historical artifact and was able to kind of appreciate it for what it is. That being said, I have a really unique perspective. I'm a grown adult talking about children's TV show on a podcast. I think for today's kids, I'm not sure. Again, I want to say that Mr. Rogers is like kind energy would be able to penetrate across generations, but I have a feeling the show's just a tad too slow. What do you think, Will?
I think you make a really good point. You know, I never considered the idea that it is like returning to an old movie, because I'm a bit skeptical of if it hangs with children's programming. I think that the messages behind it and the way it approaches children's TV is really great, but I feel like it's already influenced the TV that we have right now. That putting it on, I wonder if it would be of much use. Like what I mean to say is that I actually think you probably said all I wanted to say before I even knew I wanted to say it, because I think it is almost worth more as a reminder, as a nostalgia piece for people of a very large age range. And I feel like there would be a lot of people our age or older who would say, of course you could put this on. This is age, this is timeless. And in a way, some of it is, but some of it isn't. And you would have to be prepared for kids to not latch onto it. And I think that that's a very distinct possibility. So first of all, whether or not it hangs on TV, I don't know. And I don't know if there is an equivalent to it right now. I would certainly hope that we would be able to make something equivalent to it, but maybe the joy in it is that we can always go back to it as something in history that existed at a very finite time. Did I like it? You better believe it. I thought this was great. I really appreciated going back to this and seeing that there is something. Again, as an adult, it was something that I found very comforting to watch and very positive and very affirming, as you said. But that's speaking as an adult, and I do wonder if I was a kid watching this now, if it would have any effect on me. And I guess it's not for me to say, but I would love to know if anybody else has has young, if anybody here in the Patreon or anybody listening, if you have any younger siblings or if you know any really young kids that you've showed Mr. Rogers to, and if it had any effect, and if there was any kind of response to it, it's hard to say, but he does exist so strongly as an icon of what children's programming could be, that I feel like another program like that existing maybe doesn't need to happen, because we can just go forward and create something entirely new that we can look back on in decades from now and say that was the Mr. Rogers of its time. And maybe that hasn't happened yet, but maybe someday we will. I don't know. There's a lot of complex feelings about it. And I mean, I think what's not so complex is I think that Fred Rogers was an incredible entertainer. He was from all appearances, he was a very good man with a very pure intention, and we're very lucky to have had him. So I hope that for our listeners, I was able to do the show and his kind of legacy a little bit of justice, even though there's so much more to talk about with him.
Well, if only there was, a documentary and a fictional movie starring Tom Hanks, but alas, I guess the listeners have to stop here with our paywalled podcast.
Yeah.
But with that aside, Will.
Oh, well.
I gotta know. What are we watching next time?
So this was interesting because I couldn't remember whose idea it was until we talked about it this episode.
Ooh,
and I'm
you're on the spot. You did the same thing that I do every time, which is you Googled PBS kids shows and you're scrolling through the Google auto results right now.
I think what I'd like to do pretty soon, and maybe we can do this for the episode following this, is that I want to put a vote out of 4 shows that we've never seen and have no opinions on. And then we can say, which of these 4 do you want us to talk about? Because I think that there are those that we're drawn to, but then there are others that people are when are you going to get to this? I'm I have no idea what this is, and I don't know. So we'll try and create some kind of poll in the Discord or probably on Patreon of we'll do these 4 shows that we don't know anything about. Which one do you want us to cover for an upcoming episode? But so that's later. So now that we've tackled Mr. Rogers, there's other specters looming on the horizon, like Sesame Street, which is going to be another.
I think let's wait a couple months before we do Sesame Street.
Enormous episode. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that. And then there's one for me that is very much I want to get to it so bad, but I don't think it's time yet. Again, that's going to be a little bit of a bigger one. So I'm going to do a little bit of a step down from the one that I really want to do. And I'm going to talk about one that I think that we, as people living in Halifax, can speak very, very closely about.
Oh, my God.
And that's Theodore Tugboat.
Oh, man. I'm excited. I had some people visit from New Brunswick a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah?
They had never seen Theodore Tugboat before, so I showed it to them. And it was. So I've recently rewatched some Theodore Tugboat. And let me tell you, I'm excited.
And of course, if you have any experience with Theodore Tugboat, of course we do, growing up in Halifax, and you'll find out why when we do the episode. But if you have any suggestions about episodes, or if you have any memories of either Theodore Tugboat or Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for that matter, we love it if you shared it below this post, or if you share your thoughts in the Discord. When we'd love if you did that for any of the For the Kids episodes. So next time we'll be talking about Theodore Tugboat, but until then, it was really nice to have you here, and we are happy that you're alive too. So Lucas Mancini and Will Young saying, that was PBS.